Rico got the baking soda out of the box and into a cup with a little water and a spoon and began swishing it around until he made a paste worthy to clean teeth with. He wouldn't, though. That'd be gross. Instead, it went on his arm and he began packing the wound. In the background, the drone was isolating and cornering the fly, who was now stuck on a window. The heat intensified on Rico's arm, and he checked his veins to make sure nothing was crawling its way to his heart, and nothing was. The skin blistered more, and Rico got a credit card out to press across the skin to see if there was some sort of stinger. Using tweezers could potentially squeeze even where poison in, he remembered from somewhere. With the press of a credit card, no stinger came out, but the wound oozed something that didn't look good. Rico wiped it off with a paper towel and applied more improvised alkaline paste on the wound. The blister festered and cracked as if fighting the high pH levels of the sodium bicarbonate. Rico was beginning to lose his mind with pain as the drone hit the fly finally, sending it in a green, splattery mess all over the window, looking out over the garden attempts outside. The sun began to set as Rico packed more of his compound on the wounded area of his arm. The drone flew around for a few more moments, satisfied it killed the bug, and crawled back onto the backpack and went to sleep. Rico broke the blister one more time as it was oozing through the crust he'd made. He washed it off again with a clean paper towel and got more of his mixture on the wound and packed it, not thinking clearly and thirsty, thinking he was reaching for his tea. He downed the rest of his batch of baking soda and water. It tasted awful, and he tossed the cup aside looking for his tea. He found it as the pain nearly overtook him, along now with nausea from the gross taste in his mouth. In less than several gulps, the rest of his tea was gone, and he lay on the kitchen floor, clutching his burning arm. Pain overtaking disgust, Rico passed back out on his cool kitchen floor, his final thoughts being what would happen if he ever had to deal with more than one fly at a time. His unconscious body shivered. Chapter 5, New Beginnings. Days seemed like hours, or maybe it was the other way around. Rico wasn't sure. When his eyes opened, it was dark. He looked at his phone and expected it to be dead, but it was still on. His eyes blurred, and they were back again, trying to focus on the battery. After a few blinks, the battery looked like the dials and readout on a semi-truck. The readouts were blurry, and Joe was trying to wake himself up in every way he could think. He shook his head and nothing. Foot on the pedal, trying to get the goods in his trailer to the next destination like he was supposed to. He shifted gears subconsciously as he rounded corner after corner, trying to scare and startle himself into a prayer that adrenaline would overcome this sudden and suspicious fatigue. Joe tried imagining metal music in his head and turned the radio up, but it didn't seem to be working. Some stupid message kept replaying on the radio. Driving while distracted countermeasures prevented him from switching to a CD player or anything to that effect. Joe shouted at the radio and tried to maintain focus, trying to channel all the energy and rage he could muster, trying to regain some semblance of awareness. There was no place to pull over, he told himself, to maybe scare himself into waking up. He smacked himself some more than pinching. Joe briefly thought maybe to poke himself in the eye or something, but then chuckled, realizing that was a horrible idea. Another corner, and he could barely keep his eyes open, and when they were open, it was blurry. He tried just closing his left eye, then his right, but his eyelids were heavy and wanted to stick shut. Another corner, and he thought he was seeing some headlights in his rear view. He should just let them go by, and incline was coming. He was so tired. Out of the corner of his eyes, he saw angels beckoning him out of the truck door, but he shook his head. It would be so easy to just go with the angels, he told himself. A beautiful angel with a tiara on her head and a gold choker around her neck, welcoming him outside the truck. Down the river, so many feet below off the cliff, he imagined a water angel with blue wings on her head, bubbles flowing up from around her, and big doe eyes. "Come join us," she said, welcoming. She beckoned him with her hands, one stretched in front of the other as if to reel him in. They both seemed so welcoming. The headlights were coming alongside him now. He should have snapped to awareness, but he was so groggy he was almost driving in a complete trance. The driver of the car was trying to speed past, but it was a very pathetically weak car, and they couldn't get it going very fast. A car was now also coming towards them, and Joe didn't want them to die in a head-on collision. He imagined a family with children in the back and how he would do anything to preserve life regardless of their beliefs or culture. The car tried to pass them on the left now, also desperate and running out of options. Swerved right into Joe's tractor. A new angel arrived out of the corner of his other window, one made of rock and one made of fire. They beckoned him to follow them. As he resigned to the fatigue, he followed the two lovely angels of stone and cinder into a cliff face, with a little waterfall coming down. Rico woke up with tears streaming down his eyes, confused as to what was going on. His head hurt. The thought trailed off. He lifted up his arm and he felt it, and the swelling and tenderness had gone down. He tried to look at it with his phone, but the battery flashed for a second at the wound and then died out of battery. The only glimpse in the darkness was the alkaline crest he had made. Wild dogs off in the distance yelping about something, probably happy it was nighttime. Rico crawled off to find his phone charger. After shuffling and wiggling around for a while trying to find his way, he bumped into his drone backpack. Usually he would use his cell phone to light the way, but to no avail. Ricky resolved that when his phone turned back on, he'd put it in airliner mode so he wouldn't keep trying to talk to cell phone towers anymore. That would help keep the battery going longer since there was nobody to call anymore. The thought trailed off again. He fumbled around with his hand and bumped the sore spot on something. Recoiling pain, he used his other hand fumbling around on the pack, hence feeling several objects in the darkness until resting upon a cord. Rico had remembered seeing this among all the other gadgets and gave it a tug. It extended a foot and he tried to stick the port into the phone a few times. Rico wondered for a second if it was the headphone jack port, but then realized the cord was upside down. Like micro USB cords always seem to be, the cord went in with a snap and he set the phone up unconsciously like he had so many times to set on. The thought trailed off. The backpack seemed to be set up like a truck console and it had a spot for his phone to rest in. The phone fit securely and Rico slumped back down on the floor, still exhausted. After a few moments, the phone started talking to the powerful battery bank in the backpack. The smart ports detected the phone and found the perfect power levels to start sending. The phone received much needed juice and within a few seconds powered itself back on to see what had happened. Rico crawled up into a ball and went back to sleep, peacefully this time. Chapter 6. A New Day. The sun rose in the sky like it did every day. There was a package arrival indicating knock at the door like there had been throughout the mornings prior. Gone were the politics and bugs and identity. Only Ringo and his drone. Rico, not Ringo. The battery was at half-life for the drone's battery pack, so Rico needed to do something, but he wasn't sure what. He hadn't had power at his house for ages. He went to the door and there was no package delivery person, of course. There were, however, a few boxes waiting in his front doorstep. Rico looked back and forth and saw no way that they could have got here. He realized his front gate must be open from his friends leaving and he'd been too busy to close it. Rico was lucky that nobody around here dared to steal packages. With a nod to himself, Rico grabbed the boxes and shuffled them inside, grabbing his multi-tool off a small shelf by the door. He sat on the cold floor, opening boxes. Digging through the packages, he kept getting from Joe until he found some solar panels and an induction power unit. In the box was some instructions and some arrows pointing which way everything went. There was a charge controller, an inverter, and a bunch of plugs and cords. There was a handwritten diagram someone wrote, and so Rico put the multi-tool in his pocket and dragged the solar panels outside and found a place to put them. With the broom leaning up against the house, he brushed off the dust and dirt from around the raised platform and with a flat shovel scraped up the long-dead plant life. On his phone, the drone had told him this was the best feasible spot for solar. It had been marked with a little sun and lightning bolt. Rico looked at the platform and couldn't figure out what it used to be. It was clearly an old concrete pad. Maybe someone had built it intending on it being for something else, maybe a wind turbine or something. He tried to remember back and thought he was supposed to put a wind turbine here, then shrugged. Maybe it turned out to be a bad spot for wind or something.